Welcome to Social Studies Samurai. In this video, we'll talk about how to write a good Peel paragraph so that your writing becomes more organized, better structured, and you become a better writer. So let's get started. So let's talk about how to write a Peel paragraph. So in the video, we'll talk about what Peel means and what it is, as well as why this is an important skill for you to develop. We're going to talk about the individuals and society's assessment criteria and the approaches to learning, ATLs, that most likely will be associated with this skill. And we're going to talk about the Peel paragraph structure. We're going to get right into it. And we'll do a sample of a Peel paragraph, and we're going to do a little activity where you work with one. What is Peel? And you might hear teal, but we're using a P instead of T. Basically, it's a four-part method for writing a paragraph. Doesn't mean the paragraph necessarily has 4 sentences, but there are 4 parts to it. Each step has a different purpose, and it requires you to think about the purpose of each of those steps. And by doing that, your paragraph structure becomes much more focused and it flows much more nicely, and it's a lot easier to read. So the P means point, the point you're making. The first E means evidence, the evidence you're going to share to prove your point. The second E is your explanation, which gives more detail, facts and statistics to support your point. And then a link is a statement that kind of rephrases your point. We'll get into that later. So why use Peel? Basically, it helps you organize your ideas. If you know this structure, then everything's going to be linked together well. Everything's going to flow smoothly, and you're going to have better organization, meaning your writing will be better and a lot clearer. It helps you build connections, right? So if you know what the point and how to make what a point is and how to make a point, then you should know what your evidence is you're going to use to support that point. And what examples and facts and details will you use to support the evidence that supports the point? It helps you really create those connections, but among the things that are in the paragraph, it helps you strengthen your arguments because you want to find the facts, the details, the best things that you're going to use to prove your point, right? It makes you really think about what am I going to put into this paragraph. And by doing that, it helps you develop your critical thinking. You're really thinking about what's the best stuff I'm going to put in to this paragraph. And maybe this is a paragraph in a bigger essay. It also really gets you to think about the examples, the facts, the points, the details that you're going to use. Rather than just writing them down, you're thinking about what's the best stuff that I'm going to put into my paragraph. It works across different subjects. This is not just for social studies or individuals and societies. You can use this in other subjects across, what you study at school. It helps you prepare for future writing because when you get this down, when you know how to do it well, then when you have to do more complicated writing, you've already got a foundation. You've got the base, right? You're ready to go. And lastly, it'll boost your confidence. When you know how to do this well, you're going to feel better as a writer, and you're going to be less nervous about writing. You'll have less anxiety about writing. So let's build that confidence by learning how to do this. And ultimately, if you can do this, you will be a stronger reader and a stronger writer. So the relevant MYP assessment criteria, we're looking at year 3, which also is for year 2. My students are in grade 7 right now, so they'll use this for 2 years. Let's look at criterion A, knowing and understanding. It fits really well with a Peel paragraph. So I would be consistently uses a range of terminology accurately. And this essentially means that most of the time you're using, a good range of words and you're using them correctly, right? The right way. The next one demonstrates excellent knowledge and understanding of content and concepts through developed and accurate descriptions, explanations, and or examples. Well, what does that mean? Basically, it means you show you have an excellent understanding of the topic as well as the concepts in them, and you're doing that through good, well-developed, and obviously accurate factual descriptions, explanations, and examples. Peel helps you do this because you have to identify the point you're making, your evidence, and then your examples and explanations. So if you can do that well, then you've got this one. So criterion C, communicating, I think this one's obvious too. Communicates information and ideas in a way that is completely appropriate to the audience and purpose. So by writing a good Peel paragraph, you have to know your topic. You have to know what point you're trying to make, and with all your evidence and your examples. If you can do this well in this structure, then you're going to be better at communicating your information and ideas. Now remember, you still do need to have good grammar and syntax, meaning your word choice and the words you use and phrases, as well as structure of using punctuation and capitalization, right? But Peel helps you get to a really big picture, organized message that you're sending in your paragraph. Now, the next one, II or 2, structures information ideas completely according to the task instructions. So if you're using Peel effectively, then you're probably structuring your ideas in a full essay or even just a paragraph according to what you're supposed to do. My students, for example, are working on just a Peel paragraph, and if they can do it this way, they are structuring information completely and their ideas according to the instructions, which is to write with a Peel paragraph. So some relevant ATLs, approaches to learning. Here are some examples. There might be others depending on what you're doing. For communication, you're using appropriate forms of writing for different purposes and audiences. You're writing a Peel paragraph. This is structure. It's a form of writing. You're making inferences and drawing conclusions, right? By writing a Peel paragraph and choosing what information is the best for you, you're actually doing this. Use and interpret a range of discipline-specific terms and symbols. Well, you're using language of INS, and probably for a specific assessment that you're doing. So that fits well also. Paraphrasing accurately and concisely, right? You're using your own words to explain something in a Peel paragraph. This fits very, very well. Now let's look at critical thinking. When you evaluate evidence and arguments, when you choose what evidence and arguments or examples or explanations you're going to put in your paragraph, this is what you're doing. You're choosing the best things to make your point. When you draw reasonable conclusions and generalizations, well, what you're doing with a Peel paragraph is using all that evidence to prove the point that you're trying to make, and you rephrase it in the link. And consider ideas from multiple perspectives. This depends on the kind of paragraph that you're writing, but this often fits in well because you might have a Peel paragraph that's trying to show one perspective, and then you have another paragraph that shows another, or maybe in one paragraph you're trying to show two different kinds of perspectives. So the Peel paragraph structure. We'll keep it simple at first and go into detail in a moment. So the P means make your point. This is the point that you're going to make in your paragraph. This is what the topic of the paragraph is. E, the first one, is called evidence. This is where you provide evidence that supports the point. This might be 2 sentences. And then your explanation. This is where you explain how your evidence supports the point, and this is your longest part. And then the link. It links back to the question that you're answering, or perhaps a thesis if it's an essay. So the evidence and the explanation, these 2 things are going to be the longest part of your Peel paragraph. So let's get into the Peel structure in detail. So your point. When you make your point, really you're just giving 1 sentence to state your idea or your argument, and it's only 1 sentence, not 2, not 3, 1. It's got to be short and relevant, meaning it's focused on the topic or the question that you've been asked. Now your evidence. This is basically when you're supporting your point, right? You're using a fact that suggests why you were right. You're kind of saying, I'm right because, and you can use more than 1 sentence for this, but don't use any more than 2. Now your explanation. This is where you explain things. This is where you show that your evidence proves your point by giving examples. This is, for example, detail. It's got to be relevant to the topic. It could be facts. It could be statistics. It basically elaborates on the evidence that you're using to prove your point. And it's going to be the longest section. You should use more than 1 sentence with this. It depends on the level that you're writing at, of course. And so the link, well, this is where you rephrase your point in 1 sentence. Just use a few different words to rephrase it. If you're writing an essay for main body paragraphs, then you're going to link back to your thesis or your big idea. So for my students, we're raising our level of writing a little bit, and so this might be different from your school and your teacher or even your grades, so talk to your teacher. For my students though, the evidence part, we're not writing for example, we're giving information that supports the point or something that says why your point is important or valid or why you're making the point. We're not giving an example. In the explanation, that's where we're saying for example or for instance. That's where we want to say for example. Keep that. So now let's look at a sample Peel paragraph. Okay, so here's a sample that we'll use. It's based on geography and it's about maps and mapping, and it's a question, not a prompt. How can different types of maps help us understand both physical and human geography? So go ahead and pause the video, find the P-E-E-L in the paragraph, and also try to think about how each thing connects to the question that's being asked. Go ahead and pause the video. All right, so now let's deconstruct this together. So the first sentence obviously is my point that I'm making, but note how it links to the question without actually just saying the same thing as the question. Maps are powerful tools that help geographers understand both the natural world and human activities. So I have the word map, I have the word help, and I've got natural world meaning physical geography and human activities meaning human geography. Now the evidence I'm using, maps allow people to collect, organize, and display information about places, showing patterns that are difficult to see from ground level. These are my own words, but when I say they allow people, I'm talking about maps. I'm actually proving, I'm saying why maps are valuable tools for geographers. And then in my first example, I don't say actually for example. You could do that. For example, in physical geography, maps such as topographic maps use contour lines to show elevation and landforms, helping us study how natural features shape human settlement and activity. That's an example that proves how physical geography and the maps that we use in physical geography help a geographer. My second example, and again I don't say for example, but I could write for example before it. In human geography, maps like population maps display where people live and how densely populated certain regions are. Again, that links to human geography, and I'm talking about why population maps, as an example, are important for geographers, how they help a geographer. And then the next one. My third example. I decided to have 3 examples in this one. To create these maps, cartographers use map projections to turn the round Earth into a flat image, even though this can cause some distortion. I'm showing a lot of information, a lot of depth here, right? Because I have 3 examples, and they all tell how maps, or different types of maps, help understand physical and human geography. I said helps us, but I decided to talk about geographers in this. And finally, my link. Overall, maps connect human and physical geography by helping us visualize how people live in and interact with different environments, right? They help us visualize the world. Maps help us visualize. It's telling about how maps are useful for us to understand physical and human geography. Okay, so now it's practice Peel paragraph time. Okay, so here's just a really quick activity. The question is, why is it important for geographers to understand map projections and distortion when studying the world? Now the sentences below are mixed up. They're not in the right order. So you're going to pause the video and read, and you're going to put them in order 1 to 5. What is the P? Where are the E's and what's the L? So pause and put them in order. Go ahead and pause the video. Okay, let's have a look. So my point is that geographers must understand map projections and distortion to study the world accurately. That really links well to the question being asked. And what I did say was, since the Earth is round, any flat map will have some amount of distortion, meaning certain areas may look larger, smaller, or differently shaped than they really are. That's my evidence that really connects well to the point. And so I have a couple of things that I'm using, 2 explanations that support this. The first says, this matters because maps are used to make important decisions about borders, travel, and global resources. That is a good example that supports my evidence and my point. And now I've used the term for example. For example, the Mercator projection shows shapes correctly, but makes areas near the poles appear much larger than those near the equator. That's another example that serves my point and the evidence that supports my point. And then I've just rephrased this by saying, Sorry, I've rephrased my point, my overall point, by linking my last sentence. Understanding distortion helps geographers avoid map bias and make fair, accurate interpretations of the world. So you should see how all of this is in the Peel structure and how it all links, back to the question. Basically, this answers the question effectively. So that's how you write a Peel paragraph. Keep practicing. It takes a while to master this, but if you practice, you will. You got this. Hope you liked the video. There's more on Instagram, Facebook, X, and on the web. Hope to see you again.